Philadelphia had never slept peacefully, but the night of July 3rd to 4th, 1776 was something special. The city seemed to hold its breath. The residents felt an unease they couldn't explain. Rumors were whispered from street to street. Some claimed to have seen strange hooded figures, others heard a rumbling underground, and a third swore he saw light shining through the closed shutters of the assembly hall window. That night became not just a turning point in history, but was also shrouded in mystique that people later tried to forget. The Continental Congress was gathering in a hall where outsiders were not allowed. A heavy atmosphere reigned in the building, not only politically but also physically palpable. Eyewitnesses who wrote about that night in their diaries mentioned the stifling, oppressive air and the sensation that the walls themselves were breathing. The candles smoked so much that the windows became clouded. It seemed as if the very air did not want to let freedom in. One of the servants who was nearby later recounted that he saw a man leaving the Congress building whose face no one could make out. His clothing was old-fashioned, as if from another century. He disappeared around the corner of the street and no one ever saw him again. This story was long considered nonsense until another eyewitness described an almost identical figure seen that same night. Interestingly, in the following years, several witnesses from that night mentioned strange coincidences: clocks that stopped exactly at midnight, animals fleeing from the city center, and letters written with mistakes as if the authors were under hypnosis. But the strangest thing was the silence. Some delegates refused to speak about the details of that night until their dying day. So why did the night that gave the world the Declaration become so difficult for its witnesses? Some believe that it was on that very night that words were put to paper which changed not only the country forever, but also something much deeper than just politics. Secret signs. The Declaration of Independence is kept in the National Archives as a sacred relic. But when researchers looked at it more closely, they began to notice strange details. Tiny symbols, barely visible curves of ink, lines that under certain lighting form shapes. At first it seemed like a play of light, but with the advancement of digital technology, it turned out that the document really does contain elements unrelated to the text. One of these elements, a barely noticeable symbol resembling an eye in a triangle, is hidden in the flourish of the capital letter T. It only appears at a certain angle of lighting and looks like part of the decorative script. However, a comparison with Masonic symbolism reveals a disturbing coincidence. This is not an ornament, it's a sign. And there are several such signs in the text. Another case is related to John Hancock's signature, the most famous, the largest one. Why did he sign so large? According to one version, he wanted his signature to be seen by King George himself. But digital processing revealed that when you zoom in, you can see tiny dots along the letters, as if it were a coordinate system or a cipher. Programmers who studied the structure of the lines discovered that the distances between them correspond to letters of another alphabet. Some researchers suggest that such elements are not just a whim. Perhaps those who created the document knew that it would be observed not only by people, but also by those who possess a different way of reading, not with letters, but with symbols. Such an idea might seem strange, but inside I heard a car stop nearby. A stranger with a camera. Could it be that the Declaration is not only a statement of freedom, but also an encrypted message? If so, the question remains, who was it intended for? The missing signature, a story that few people know about. Originally, among the signatories of the Declaration was a certain William Williamson. His name appeared in preliminary drafts and even in the notes of some delegates. But when it came time to sign the final version, he disappeared. And not just physically, he seemed to vanish into thin air. No letters, no mentions, no body. Some believe that he refused to sign the document, frightened by the consequences. Others claim that he disappeared under mysterious circumstances connected to his correspondence with certain European agents. His house was found sealed, and his family left literally the night after his disappearance. All documents related to him were destroyed or vanished without a trace. The most frightening part of this story was the diary of his neighbor, discovered in the archives only in the mid-20th century. It said, "My neighbor William went out at night. The light in his window stayed on until dawn. Then everything went quiet, and in the morning a strange mark appeared on his door, which no one could erase for several days. What kind of mark it was is not specified, but the drawing in the diary resembles a symbol that later appeared on the seal of one of the Masonic orders. It was precisely after Williamson's disappearance that rumors began to spread about the black signature, a mysterious spot on the original document where there should have been another name, but the paper had darkened there as if it had been burned. Archivists claimed that there had never been any signature there, but researchers insisted there was an emptiness, but not a random one. If the signature really did disappear, then what kind of force could have erased it not only from the paper, but from history itself? A Masonic conspiracy? The connection between the founding fathers of the United States and the Masons is documented. Benjamin Franklin was a member of a lodge, and so was George Washington. But was the very document that became the foundation of the new country written under the influence of Masonic ideas? Everything points to yes. And this could mean that there is a deeper meaning hidden in its wording. A study of the symbolism in the text and the architecture of the hall where the signing took place reveals direct parallels with Masonic rituals. Even the arrangement of the furniture and the direction in which the delegates sat matched the patterns of a grand assembly. The building itself, in its geometry, resembles the layout of a Masonic temple. Coincidence? One of the most interesting details is the 13 columns at the entrance to the building, matching the number of colonies. But the Masons believed that 13 was the number of initiation. It is in this context that the legend appears, claiming that only the initiated could understand the true meaning of the Declaration's text. Everyone else saw only beautiful rhetoric about freedom. Many of the document's phrases, when read from a Masonic perspective, take on a new meaning. For example, the phrase, "all men are created equal," in the context of the ritual meant that they are equal before the great architect of the universe, not before the law. This nuance can completely change the understanding of the Founding Fathers' philosophy. But if the Declaration really was created under the influence of a secret brotherhood, could it be that it contains something more than just a political statement? Invisible witnesses. Not everyone who was present at the signing of the Declaration left a trace in the official records. The archives mention only 56 people, but historians find hints of a greater number of attendees. Who are these invisible witnesses? Why didn't they leave their signatures yet found themselves present at one of the most important events in history? The secretary's diaries mention invited guests whose names were never recorded. One of the guards later recounted seeing 3 men enter the hall without giving their names. Their faces were hidden, and when he tried to stop them, one of them simply showed a ring. After that, the guard stepped aside as if under hypnosis. Some versions claim that these were representatives of secret European societies interested in America's independence, but not at all for the sake of freedom. Others say they were intermediaries between the Founding Fathers and someone higher up. Their presence was not recorded because they were not meant to be remembered. And yet traces of them remained, in fragments of letters, in strange notes, in references by third parties. Why were these figures never officially documented? Perhaps they completed their mission and vanished. But perhaps, and this is even more unsettling, they continue to ensure that the spirit of the Declaration never reveals its true secrets. Jefferson's draft. Thomas Jefferson began writing the draft of the Declaration in seclusion, hiding from prying eyes. He spent several days in his study, hardly ever stepping outside. According to surviving letters, almost no one saw him during this period. The windows were curtained, and the lights in his house burned late into the night. What exactly happened during those hours is still a matter of debate. Jefferson's original draft has survived only in part, and it contains quite a few oddities. Some lines were crossed out so thoroughly that they could only be restored using infrared imaging in the 20th century. One such phrase, "We owe obedience only to those who rise above others not by flesh, but by reason." This wording has sparked numerous interpretations, including theories about the existence of elites ruling from the shadows. Sections of the text have also been found that were rewritten several times with different meanings. One particularly strange line is where Jefferson first wrote, "All men are created rational," but later changed it to "equal." This change seems not only stylistic, it alters the essence. Perhaps someone insisted on the substitution to conceal the original philosophical intent. The paper on which the draft was written is also of interest. Analysis revealed traces of substances uncharacteristic for that time, microscopic traces of copper and an unknown organic compound. Scientists have not yet been able to determine exactly where they might have come from, but it is possible that Jefferson used ink of a special composition, perhaps to make part of the text invisible without a special developer. A draft is not just a draft. It is a doorway into the mind of the person who wrote one of the most important documents in history. And the deeper we look into it, the more questions arise, especially about those lines that were erased forever or almost forever. Jefferson's Code. Not everyone knows that Thomas Jefferson was not only a politician and philosopher, but also an inventor. His most mysterious invention is considered to be the so-called Jefferson disk, a cipher device consisting of numerous rotating disks with letters. It allowed messages to be concealed behind a complex code that was impossible to decipher without knowing the key. The question that still torments researchers is, did Jefferson use his cipher when creating or distributing the Declaration? There are no documents that directly indicate this, but there is indirect evidence. One of Jefferson's assistants mentioned in a letter a mechanism that turns to hide the truth from fools and reveal it to the worthy. Some researchers have tried to apply the cipher to the text of the Declaration, especially to parts that appear stylistically unusual. For example, the phrase subordinate but not submissive sounds strange in context. When these words are encoded using the supposed key, the resulting phrase is, "The secret is not revealed to everyone." This could be a coincidence. Or maybe not. Moreover, a document dated July 1776 was found, written in encrypted form using the disk principle. It was sent to a certain Edward Rutledge, one of the signers of the Declaration. The document has only been partially deciphered so far, but it mentions true words hidden within the visible, which naturally raises suspicions. If Jefferson really embedded a cipher in the text, it could mean that the Declaration is a double document, one for history and another for the initiated. Voices underground. Philadelphia at the end of the 18th century was not just streets and buildings. Beneath the city, there was a network of underground passages, catacombs, and tunnels dug back in colonial times. Officially, they were for drainage and shelter from attacks. But unofficially, they were also used for more mysterious purposes. Many of these tunnels ran beneath the building where the Declaration was signed. Contemporaries wrote about sounds coming from beneath the floor, rustling, a hum, as if someone was speaking, but the words were indistinguishable. One of the guards even reported late one evening that he saw a person emerging from a hatch near the building's back entrance. When he looked inside, the hatch led nowhere, as if it had closed off. Research conducted in the early 20th century confirmed the existence of undocumented passages beneath the hall. Some of them had collapsed while others were sealed up, and yet the question remained, what were they used for on the night of July 4th? According to a letter from John Adams, some of the information was received and carried away not through the doors, but beneath their feet. It is possible that it was through these tunnels that encoded information was transmitted. Certain diaries mention a second meeting, supposedly a parallel gathering in the underground, where not only independence was discussed, but also plans for the future structure of the country. History denies this, but some traces in old documents make one question the official version. If the underground passages were used that night, then the question arises, who exactly was their passenger, and what words were spoken there in the darkness, far from the candlelight and the ears of history? The hunt for the Declaration. After the Declaration of Independence was signed, its fate almost ended in tragedy. The original document was repeatedly targeted for destruction or theft. And it wasn't always America's enemies behind it. History is silent about a number of incidents that still have no official explanation. The first case occurred in 1793. The document was in Philadelphia when a yellow fever epidemic broke out. In the chaos, the Declaration was lost for several days. It was later found in the basement of a private house wrapped in canvas. No one knew how it ended up there. The owners of the house claimed they had never seen it before. The second incident happened in 1810. A fire broke out in the State Department building. All documents were destroyed except for one. The Declaration remained untouched. Moreover, it was later discovered that the day before the fire, it had been moved to another room. Who gave the order? No one knows. The most disturbing case happened in the mid-20th century when an unidentified person tried to forge the original. A fake was made using antique paper and identical ink. The question is, why? Was it to replace the original, or to decipher it using the copy? Some theories speak of a secret organization that ensures the Declaration does not fall into the wrong hands. This organization has no name but appears in documents as the Circle of 13. Their goal is to protect not only the text but also what is hidden within it. But if someone is guarding the document, that means there is someone from whom it must be hidden. And what exactly do those who tried to steal it want to find out? Fire letters. In the 18th century, the use of invisible ink was common among scholars and diplomats. One popular method was to use ink that would only appear when heated. Such letters were called fire letters because you had to bring them close to a flame to read the message. One of the most famous experiments is associated with Benjamin Franklin, who taught young agents to use this method. But what if the Declaration itself had a similar version? According to the memoirs of a certain Dr. Price, an assistant to the delegates, one copy of the document flared up while being dried by the fireplace. It didn't burn, but new words appeared on the white paper. This incident was long considered a legend until, in the 20th century, infrared analysis was conducted on several copies. On two of them, traces of inscriptions were detected that are not visible in the normal spectrum. Some of them could be read as, "Truth is above the law, and what is hidden inside is clear only in the light of sacrifice." The symbolism of these phrases remains a subject of debate. There is a theory that some of the letters exchanged between the signatories contained instructions for deciphering the alternative text. These letters were burned after being read, but references to them have been preserved in notes. One such fragment reads, "The wording is simple, but only those who know where to look will see their burning meaning." If the fiery letters really did exist, it means that some of the most important words in history have remained invisible to most people, and perhaps they are waiting for someone to bring fire to them once again. A seal with a twist. The Great Seal of the United States is not just a national symbol, it is a carefully crafted composition, approved 6 years after the signing of the Declaration. The front side is familiar to everyone, a bald eagle, a shield, arrows, and an olive branch. But the reverse side is much more mysterious. It is the reverse that gives rise to the greatest number of theories and puzzlement. On the reverse side, there is a pyramid with an all-seeing eye at the top. Beneath it is a Latin inscription, Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new order of the ages. But why was such symbolism chosen for the official seal of the young republic, and who insisted on its inclusion? History claims that the design was proposed by Franklin along with his Masonic colleagues. However, letters have survived in which he insisted on a more biblical symbolism featuring Moses. The appearance of the pyramid with the eye contradicts his original idea. So, someone else made changes. Some historians claim that this element was borrowed from mystical European teachings. The so-called Order of Light, a secret society that existed on the border of France and Germany, is mentioned especially often. Their symbolism almost exactly matches the image on the seal. Is it a coincidence or a deliberate gesture? If the seal truly carries a hidden meaning, then perhaps it is not just a symbol of the country, but a key to the ideas concealed within the declaration. The only question is, who exactly was supposed to use this key? The myth of the storm. According to one legend, at the moment the declaration was signed, a powerful thunderstorm broke out over Philadelphia. Lightning flashed above the assembly hall, thunder shook the windows, and the sky seemed to split apart. It sounds like a beautiful literary embellishment, but the accounts of contemporaries make one wonder, was it really just the weather? Several diaries belonging to local residents contain descriptions of that night. People wrote that the air was humming, birds were silent, not even a crow could be heard. The ground trembled as if an army was marching. One merchant mentioned that at the moment the lightning struck, his watch stopped exactly at midnight. Interestingly, according to some reports, lightning struck the assembly hall when the final text of the declaration was read aloud. The stone pediment of the building developed a crack, which was only repaired decades later. One of the workers later hired for restoration mentioned this in his letters. Scientists explain this as a simple coincidence, but mystics see it as a sign, as if nature itself, the entire universe, responded to the birth of a new order. Some even claim that the day before the signing, a strange shining circle was seen in the sky, resembling a halo, but brighter and with moving shadows. If all of this is just a coincidence, then it happened with remarkable precision at the very moment when America determined its destiny. But if not, then perhaps the very act of independence was not just a political gesture, but something far more significant. Legacy of darkness. Almost 2.5 centuries have passed since that night. The Declaration has long become a textbook, a symbol of freedom, equality, and independence. But beneath the layer of official history, questions remain. There are too many coincidences, disappearances, ciphers, and shadows to write it all off as mere chance. Many researchers claim that the Declaration contains not only a political message but also a philosophical and possibly even an esoteric concept. The document is written in such a way that it can be read on multiple levels. For ordinary citizens, it is a manifesto of freedom. For the enlightened, a guidebook. For the chosen few, an encrypted code. It is no coincidence that those who created the United States were not just politicians. They were scientists, Freemasons, alchemists, philosophers, diplomats, and cryptographers. Their intentions may have gone far beyond the war for independence. The question is not whether there were secrets surrounding the Declaration. The question is how many of them are still active today. Today, as the document lies behind glass in the archive, millions of people look at it but see only words. Only a few continue to search for what has gone unnoticed within them. Perhaps this is its true purpose, to serve as a test of attentiveness, intellect, and the willingness to see more. If we truly want to understand what freedom is, perhaps we should look at the Declaration again, not through the eyes of a contemporary, but through the eyes of those who left a trace of darkness within it, a trace that has never disappeared.